In the vibrant cocoa farming village of Nyamakrom, nestled in the lush forests of Ghana, Kofi Asante was renowned for his diligence and stubbornness. His farm thrived, but his stubborn streak often caused friction with his wife, Adwoa. One morning, while preparing for a trip to deliver cocoa beans to the nearby market, Adwoa warned him about the dangers of the forest path, known as Abonsam Kroō, or the Cursed Road. Villagers whispered of strange occurrences and missing travelers. "Kofi, please take the main road," Adwoa pleaded. "It may be longer, but it's safe. The forest is no place for anyone." But Kofi waved her off, dismissing the stories as mere superstitions. "Adwoa, we can't live in fear of old tales," he said firmly. "The forest road will save me hours, and time is money." With that, he loaded his goods onto his trusty cart and set off, leaving his wife's worried gaze behind. As he entered the dense forest, a chill settled over him, and the once vibrant sounds of nature grew eerily silent. But Kofi pressed on, unaware that his journey down Abonsam Kroō would forever change his life. The forest's dense canopy cast an oppressive shadow over the narrow path, and Kofi felt a strange unease creep into his heart. He brushed it off, attributing it to Adwoa's worrying. The cart's wheels creaked as they rolled over uneven ground, and the rhythmic sound of his footsteps echoed unnaturally in the stillness. Suddenly, a faint whispering filled the air, like distant voices carried by the wind. Kofi paused, his heart racing. "Who's there?" he called, his voice breaking the silence, but no one replied. Instead, the whispers grew louder, forming a disjointed chorus that seemed to come from all directions. Determined to shake off his fear, Kofi muttered to himself, "Just the wind, nothing more." Yet the forest seemed to disagree. The trees swayed, though there was no breeze, and the path ahead appeared to shift and twist as though it had a mind of its own. Kofi tightened his grip on the reins of his cart, silently vowing to press on. But deep in his heart, a seed of doubt had been planted, and it would soon take root. Back at home, Adwoa's unease refused to subside. She had watched her husband leave with a heavy heart, and now, as dusk settled over Nyamakrom, a foreboding sense of dread enveloped her. She couldn't explain it, but she felt as though Kofi was in grave danger. Adwoa decided to pray. Kneeling on the earthen floor of their humble home, she clasped her hands and began to call on the Almighty. "Father, protect my husband. Guide him back to us safely," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her words carried a depth of emotion that seemed to resonate in the stillness of the night. As she prayed, the faint sound of drumming reached her ears from the direction of the forest. It was the kind of sound associated with spiritual warnings in their culture. Adwoa's heart skipped a beat. She knew then that her prayers would need to continue through the night, for the battle to bring Kofi home safely had only just begun. Deeper into the forest, Kofi's confidence began to falter. The path, which had once been clear, now seemed to close in on him. Vines hung low, forcing him to duck, and the cart's wheels became stuck in the mud more than once. The whispers had not ceased. Instead, they grew louder, sometimes sounding like his name being called from a distance. "Who's playing tricks on me?" Kofi shouted, anger masking his fear. But no one appeared. Shadows danced at the edges of his vision, and he began to question his decision. Yet his pride would not let him turn back. "It's just a path," he told himself. "I'll be out of here soon." Suddenly, the cart's axle snapped with a loud crack, and the load of cocoa beans spilled onto the ground. Frustrated, Kofi cursed under his breath as he worked to salvage what he could. But as he knelt, he felt a presence behind him. Turning swiftly, he saw nothing but the towering trees. Yet he knew he was no longer alone. Kofi's breath quickened as he scanned the forest. Out of the shadows emerged a man unlike anyone he had ever seen. Dressed in flowing white robes, the stranger carried an air of authority and calm. "You should not be here," the man said, his voice resonating like a deep drumbeat. Kofi straightened, trying to mask his fear. "Who are you? And what are you doing in this forest?" he demanded. The stranger ignored the question and instead gestured toward the broken cart. "This road is cursed for a reason. You must leave before it's too late." Kofi hesitated, torn between pride and fear. The stranger's piercing gaze seemed to see straight into his soul. Finally, Kofi nodded. "I'll turn back," he said. The stranger smiled faintly and pointed to a faint trail that branched off to the left. "Follow this path. It will lead you home." Before Kofi could ask more, the man disappeared into the shadows, leaving him both relieved and unnerved. As midnight approached, Adwoa continued to pray. Her hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. She had lit a small lantern and placed it at the window, a beacon of hope for her husband. The drumming sound from the forest grew louder, and she could now hear faint echoes of voices. "God of my ancestors, guide Kofi back to us," she whispered fervently. Adwoa's prayers seemed to reach a crescendo, and she felt a sudden peace wash over her. It was as though an unseen presence had entered the room, reassuring her that her prayers had been heard. Little did she know, her unwavering faith was working wonders deep in the forest, where her husband's fate hung precariously in the balance. She resolved to stay awake until he returned, no matter how long it took. The path the stranger had pointed to was narrow and overgrown, but Kofi followed it nonetheless. Each step felt like a leap of faith, and he found himself silently thanking Adwoa for her warnings. As he trudged forward, the whispers faded, replaced by the distant sound of flowing water. He soon realized that the path led to a small stream that marked the edge of the forest. Relief flooded his heart as he stepped out into the open, leaving the cursed road behind. But as he glanced back, he saw the faint outline of the stranger standing among the trees, watching him. With a grateful nod, Kofi turned and continued on his way, eager to reunite with his family. As dawn broke, Kofi finally reached Nyamekrom, weary but alive. He saw Adwoa waiting at the edge of the village, her lantern still glowing faintly. The moment she spotted him, she ran to him, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Kofi, you're safe!" she cried, embracing him tightly. Overwhelmed, Kofi held her close, silently vowing never to dismiss her warnings again. As they walked home together, Kofi recounted his harrowing journey and the mysterious stranger who had saved him. Adwoa listened intently, her faith reaffirmed. "The power of prayer is real," she said softly. "God sent you a guardian when you needed one most." Kofi nodded, humbled by the experience and grateful to have survived the cursed road. Kofi's experience in the forest left him deeply shaken, but it also taught him a valuable lesson about humility and the power of faith. Over the next few days, he shared his story with the villagers, urging them to heed the warnings about Abonsam Kroō. "Pride can blind us to danger," he admitted, "but faith and love can guide us home." The tale of Kofi's journey spread throughout Nyamekrom, and the villagers began to avoid the cursed road entirely. They also held a special Thanksgiving ceremony to honor the divine intervention that had saved him. For Kofi and Adwoa, life returned to normal, but their bond grew stronger. Kofi no longer dismissed his wife's wisdom, and Adwoa continued to pray for her family's safety each day. The forest remained a place of mystery and caution, but for the Asante family, it also became a reminder of the power of love, faith, and humility.